What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mershazde. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mershazde, and boy, do we have a special guest. Candice Horbacz is in the house. What's up, Candice?
Hey, good to see you.
Oh my gosh, it's been a minute. Welcome to The Greatness Machine. I can't believe you're here. We had a couple of scheduling things we had to do, but man, welcome. It's so good to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
So do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get rocking?
Perfect.
Let's do it. And I'm glad to have you here as well. So thank you so much. So for listeners who are new to the show, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. People who love their passions and those creating greatness in the world and doing so despite the odds. And Candice is neither short of passion or greatness. So I'm going to give my background story on Candice. So first and foremost, I've seen her coming up in the podcast world. She's got an awesome podcast that we're going to be talking about today. And I was actually familiar of her previous job as well that we'll be talking about in the world of the adult film world. And so we're at a party and I'm hanging out with some friends and I look over and I see this woman and I'm like, I know her. And I was like, man, that's Candice. I'm like, I should go talk to her. I'd love to have her on the show. Now I'm going to take one quick step back. A friend of mine, Justin Breen, had been a guest on Candice's podcast. And I hit him up and said, hey, how do you know Candice? And he had met, I think, your husband through Abundance 360. And I said, hey, would you mind making an introduction for me? I'd want to have Candice on the show. And he kind of ghosted me on it. I'm like, well, it's lame. Like, come on, man. I'm a podcaster. You got to like hook a brother up. But he didn't do it. And this was literally like a couple weeks before I had seen her at the party. And I see her at the party. I'm like, oh, it was meant to be. So then fast forward to like 4 minutes after I see her and her husband kind of float over in the direction of where I'm standing. And I immediately said, I know you, which you probably get a lot. I mean, do you get that a fair amount? I would ask.
Do. Yeah, for one thing or another.
you're like, all right, how does this dude know me?
Right, I gotta like hone in on like which content.
Which content?
Yeah.
So I was quick I was quick though. I was like, hey, I know you. I love your podcast. So I went straight for the podcast. The right PO, not the form. So what I'd love to do is give a little bit of your formal bio, if you don't mind. And here at the Greatness Machine, we love origin stories. Would love to hear some of your origin story. Does that work for you?
Sure. Yeah. So I started off like bikini modeling, waitressing, bartending, going through school. I had always wanted to be in front of the camera in kind of a provocative way. I just didn't really know how to do that. And through my modeling and like certain bikini competitions, I ended up getting approached to do like webcamming. And I had no idea what that was, but they said you get to work from the comfort of your own home. It's a great way to make money, build a fan base. And I tried it. I hated it. It's basically a whole bunch of people on the internet bossing you around as they tip you. And that doesn't work for me. I don't like being told what to do. So that was short-lived. I started a fan website that was doing really well, but it just didn't feel like a real job. It didn't feel like I was actually doing it. Was kind of like felt like the bootleg version of what I was trying to do. So I found a website I really liked. It's called We Live Together, and it was an all-girl website. At the time, I thought it was real. It's like very reality-esque. And I was like, I'm going to go live in this mansion in Miami, and I'm going to, be driving these cars and having these like amazing, incredible times. And found out it's not. It's all staged, but I basically submitted some photos, my ID, and they flew me down to Miami, and the rest is history. I got into the adult industry. I was there for like 5 years, one of the top performers in the world at the time. And then eventually I left, started my own thing. 2020 happened and I started a podcast like everyone else, and I made the even braver decision to introduce the real me to my audience, which was scary, and a lot of people don't do that. We hide behind stage names because things can get kind of crazy, but I felt like I couldn't do the next thing without kind of letting go of Eva, in a sense, like saying, okay, I'm doing this other thing and I don't want it to be tied to me forever. Like, yes, I did it. It's on the internet forever. It's not like a regret thing. It's more like burning the boats, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, you totally like owning it, right? And that was something that that was when I first noticed. Was I saw you come out on the podcast, and I'm, I'm a guy, so I'm kind of familiar with all the different things that happen in the world. I'm like, oh, I recognize her, and saw that. So your adult film name is Eva Lovia, is that correct?
Yes.
So I want to take a step back. So wanting to get into like a provocative, in public, persona, and to do it in the adult film world is probably like, that's not normal, right? Like there's not like a lot of girls will say, or guys will say, hey, I want to become an actor and actress. I personally, I actually do know a couple of people that have gotten into the adult world that I grew up with. Like that wasn't something that they were like saying, hey, this is what I want to do when I grow up. So for when you say like, hey, it's something I wanted to do something publicly and provocative, like, was it like how did that, tell us your thought process around that?
I think that there are always some people that are more comfortable on the outskirts. Like that is where they want to be. Like they're not comfortable within the group or within the herd. And because of how I was raised, my childhood, I mean, we moved around a ton. I was bullied a ton. My parents divorced when I was young. There were all of these little markers that kind of were constantly pushing me on the outside. So eventually that's where you're comfortable. And I think that maybe part of it was, okay, I'm already on the outside anyways. And there was this draw to like finding out my sexuality and my femininity and how those things kind of were tied together, especially as a young woman. I think, well, I know I did not have a lot of positive female role models growing up. Like the sexuality, femininity, confidence, all of those things were kind of like shamed in a sense, and there was a lot of woman to woman jealousy that was exemplified for me, and I just felt like I was not allowed to experience pleasure. I wasn't allowed to step into womanhood, and what did that mean? And for me, I saw women like Carmen Electra, Pamela Anderson, like these absolute goddesses that seemed to figure something out. Like they seemed to really lean into that like hyper feminine, super sexualized archetype, and it was always really fascinating to me. So I thought I could continue to be jealous of women and continue to feel super insecure and shameful around this thing that I am, or I can really lean into it and try to see like what am I missing, and how is there a better, more positive way to experience this? Which the answer is yes.
And so when you were, and again, I think that this is obviously that business, the adult world, or like, the business of sex, at least, it seems to be a young person's business, right? It's not, I mean, and I'm not saying there aren't people that are older that do it, but I mean, especially women, right? On and again, I get there's all sorts of genres of adult entertainment that people are attracted to, but I would say like probably the most commercialized is going to be younger women, in their youth. When you think of yourself, was this like, did you identify like, hey, did you think of yourself as like someone that was getting a lot of attention in that way? And this was something that was like, wasn't a stretch for you as far as like, hey, I know I'm attractive. I know people like I have a certain energy. I'm already getting attention in this way. Or was that something new for you?
The attention thing is interesting. I didn't get a lot until, I don't know, it was almost the same time I got into the industry. Like it wasn't an ugly duckling story or anything like that. I was just so shy and introverted. And again, like there was so much resistance to anything sexual on my end that I just wasn't putting it out there. So I wasn't really getting that attention. And then as I got into the industry and got more confidence was when I started to actually be approached more. So it's not like I looked any different. It was all a change internally. And I don't know, it was this weird, like knowing. I just knew that I was going to be successful in it. And I know looking back, that it's easier to say if you actually were successful, but it's just anything that I tried to do, I knew I was going to have it, whether it was a contract, whether it was a title, an award, whatever. I was like, I'm going to get that thing.
So we had a former guest on the show, Dr. Sadie Allison, who's a doctor of sexuality, and she's a friend of mine. And it was interesting. mean, she's a highly sexualized person. She said when she was younger, she was like, I think she called herself young Dr. Ruth. Like she was out there educating her friends in junior high and high school around like sex, right? and so, which is, you know, again, and she was in San Francisco, and she was a really sexual person. I read a book last year by Asa Akira, who's an adult film star, and she was talking about same thing for her. Like she was hypersexual, like in junior high and high school, and like for her to, when she got in the adult film world, it was just kind of a natural extension. If I heard what you said correctly, is you were actually the opposite, really shy. Would you have considered but had this inside of you? Was that am I characterizing that correctly?
Yeah, I was not hypersexual. I was a serial monogamist. Like I went from long-term boyfriend to long-term boyfriend. I was not doing one-night stands or casual sex, nothing like that. To me, that felt too risky. And I know that that's going to sound crazy to people because there's different kind of risk taking. So if you're participating in random hookup culture and you're just meeting a guy for the first time, whether it's on an app or at a bar, and you're taking him home or you're going to his house, which is even scarier, there's a real physical risk there that you are gambling with. What I gambled with was my social credit, right? So I did these scenes publicly, and there's definitely social fallout that comes from that and relationships that fall away and people's judgment that I have to deal with forever because of that decision. But when I show up to a set, my chances of getting injured or harmed are far less, in my opinion, than if I go home with someone who's not a professional, who hasn't been tested. I have no idea if he's a serial killer. So that seemed more physically safe to me to be able to explore sexuality. I felt safe doing that with a civilian.
How did and I think you kind of just touched on something that probably a lot of people are curious about, which is how do you deal with the public reaction, your personal family reaction, your friends' reaction to something like this? Was it something that you kept under wraps and then they found out about later? Or was it something that you were just public about right away? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
So unfortunately, I think there's this idea that anonymity is guaranteed. That's why you make a stage name when you're young and dumb and you think no one's going to find out unless it's on my terms. Well, unfortunately, that's not how it works. And more often than not, it's someone that you went to school with that starts sending the video around, including to your parents, which is insane. And I know a lot of people that's happened to. But for me, I was not ready to tell anyone. I didn't tell my mom, and her fiance at the time was watching some Mark Cuban network show, and they were doing an adult expo video, like just man on the street interviews kind of a thing. And I popped up. He's like, "Whoa, what is she doing at this expo? And why is she wearing lingerie?" So he found out and told my mom, which I think he probably should have, right? Like that's his relationship with her. So he told her, she Googled, blew up, had a fit. She's mostly okay with it now. And I had certain friends that stopped talking to me for a while. I still have family members that don't talk to me. I have certain relationships. My husband has certain relationships that are gone, or businesses that have kind of imploded because of that. And I just look at it as a good filtration system now. So if you're going to categorize me in a specific way because of one thing that I did that you disagree with, then that is your business. That is not my business. And I just know not for me. And I can't change anyone's mind. I'm not going to defend my actions. They were mine to make, like my choices to make. And if that puts me as an untouchable in someone's eyes, then so be it.
Yeah. Well, look, it's kind of coming. I mean, I think you've represented that just with how you've come out publicly. I think a lot of folks in that business fade off into anonymity after the fact, right? You don't you don't know what their real name is or what their family life is or anything like that. It's just like, oh, that's an adult film star and that's their business. There's very few examples. I can't give any examples really. Maybe.
Well, there's also the catch-22 of the more success you have within the industry, the harder it's going to be after you get out. So if you were, middle of the road, or even someone that just had no success with the industry, you came in, made a couple grand and left, you are going to be able to kind of blend right back into society more seamlessly. Where if you are someone like an Asa Akira, I mean, Asa is her real first name, it's going to be impossible. She's huge. She's one of the biggest stars of all time. So there is no I just get to be regular Asa. There's always going to be a big group of people that recognize her for what she's done or gossip. And people love having information that other people don't. So they'll be like, do you know who that is? Right. So it'll just spread no matter what. So to fight it is a fool's errand. It's not going to work. So the only answer the only right move forward is acceptance, like just radical acceptance for the decisions you made.
Yeah, no, I think that seems like the most like healthiest way to approach it, which is probably true of anything, right? Like you can't change your past, and if you made decisions that you made, like those are the decisions you made, own them, and leverage them to grow, right? Which is like we're all growing in our careers, no matter what they are. And so, when you start thinking back to when you first got in the business, was it like shocking, or were you like, oh, I'm right at home? Like, this is like where I'm meant to be. Like, tell us a little bit about that. Cause I think obviously, just speaking of the act of sex, like most people, like it's done privately. Right. And then to take that leap publicly, probably most people haven't done that. How was that experience for you?
So my first few years in the industry were actually just with girls. I didn't work with men at all. And I thought my first scene, I was terrified. I was shaking like a leaf. I'd never been with a woman. I didn't know what I was doing. She was not very nice to me. And yeah, she was a vet. Like, she's been there forever. She's seen probably thousands of girls come and go. So she just was not wasting energy or time on me. And I was like, how do I do this? Do you have any tips? And she was just like, shoot, fly, don't bother me. And I was like, well, this is going to make this scene kind of awkward because like we have to like be passionate and like each other. It was one of the best performing scenes on the site immediately. It was #1 everywhere. And it took off to a point where I immediately had all my next scenes booked almost instantaneously with this company. So I didn't feel natural, but I was like excited, and I knew I wanted to still be there, and I wasn't going to chalk up my entire experience in the industry to my very first scene that wasn't great. I was like, well, she's just a person, and she's just a little bit grumpy, and I'm sure not everyone is like that, and I'm going to just keep doing this. And then my first boy-girl scene was actually, I think it was one of the best things to ever happen to me because it challenged my preconceived ideas on what love was, what marriage was, what jealousy was, what sex was. I was a wildly jealous person, wildly possessive. Again, not great role models and not enough like mentors to kind of challenge my bad behavior. So it was kind of like hardening at that point. And like my frame of reference was just like, this is okay. This is what we're doing. So I'm at an adult expo, and I already know who the guy is going to be. I picked him out ahead of time. It was scheduled, and his wife was working at the thing, and her name's Annika Albright, and one of the sweetest human beings on the planet. So she runs up to me and gives me the biggest hug, and she's like, I heard Mick is doing your first scene. I'm so happy for you. I think you made a great choice. Like, he is so sweet. He's so kind. If you need anything, let him know. If you feel nervous or pressured or like whatever it is, he'll talk to the directors. Like, he will make you feel safe and like whatever you need. And she was just like gushing with real like love for me. And I was like, whoa, her husband is going to have sex with me. And and she has no jealousy towards me at all. She's not mean to me. She's not cruel. There's no fear around abandonment. And is he going to leave her? And like all these things that before going into the industry, like, well, if he has sex with someone else, well, our relationship is done. He must not love me. Like these things that seem very obvious and very true, but I'm witnessing quite the opposite in front of me. And I see total enamoration between the two of them. Like, they're so in love, and they're still married to this day and have like multiple children. So it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't like, oh, their relationship crumbled shortly after. Like, no, they're truly a match. And I was like, whoa, this is nuts. So then we go to do the scene, and I'm so nervous because I had not been with a lot of men in my life at all. I think he was like, on one hand, going to be like right. So, and the room full of people. And I just knew that when you make this decision, there's no undoing it. And he takes me to the side of the room, and he's like, is there anything you don't want to do? Is there anything that you're uncomfortable with? Can I help you feel comfortable? Like, what can I do to make this a good experience for you? And I was like, holy cow. Out of all of the men that I had been intimate with in my real life, not one of them have ever done that.
Wow.
Not one of them prioritized my comfort, my safety, my pleasure, like nothing. And I was like, sex, intimacy, love, all of these things are so multi-layered, and they're not as simple in black and white as we think that they are. That's our ego trying to oversimplify things.
Right.
So in those moments, it challenged the way that I saw the world in such a beautiful way. And I think because of that decision, my marriage is stronger. My relationship to my family is stronger. My relationship to myself is stronger. Like, all of those things are fortified because of that decision, which is probably going to sound crazy to a lot of people. And I'm not saying like everyone needs to go start swinging or start, get into the industry to like find themselves or save their marriage. I'm not saying that, but just challenge these ideas that we have calcified as true.
Yeah. Well, I heard two things here right now, and I'd love to get your reaction to both of them. So one is I heard this like not having like attachment, right? His wife didn't have an attachment, or her ego wasn't wrapped up in her possession of her husband, right? Which some people might be listening and cringing with what I'm saying, but if you actually start thinking of like what feelings are coming up when you feel jealous, or what feelings are coming up when you feel like betrayed, a lot of it is that, right? It's this like ego and attachment. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, 100%, because it's mine. It's possessiveness. And it's the ultimate condition. I love you on the condition that you are perfect, that you are a pretty little bird in this beautiful cage, and don't you dare dream about leaving me. And whatever that is, whether it's, you're going out with the boys too much, or you have a hobby that doesn't include me, or you looked at Catherine Zeta-Jones too long when you were watching Zorro, whatever it was, right? Like, we all have the list of all of our conditions. And I think that love in its purest form is absolute freedom. And it doesn't mean that person is going to go and take that freedom and make choices that are not aligned within your union. That's not what freedom is. Freedom is a lot of responsibilities, and there are boundaries to that. Like, there's always going to be like guardrails on that freedom. But it's to say that they're going to do what they want to do anyways. So why not let go and trust that person that you're with, and like be happy for their happiness.
Yeah. I think though you just made a really good point, which is the responsibility, right? Which I think a lot of people don't want to have the responsibility associated with owning that. And so, I mean, I've seen this with a lot of friends of mine, some of which have explored open relationships, and like they go sideways because they're both people, A, there's no agreement around the union, and B, someone is irresponsible with it, right? Someone, says, yeah, we're going to be in love until one of us isn't, right? And which you can't necessarily control that, but the point is they're not necessarily taking the responsibility as highly as they probably need to. So I totally agree with what you just said. I think people want to blame in general, and not everyone. Some people can take some really, I mean, what we're talking about here is high risk, right? Like if you're like you're trying to manage someone's emotions around a fairly provocative subject of like interpersonal sexuality. That's a really, there's no school for that probably, right? There's no class. Maybe there are classes nowadays that you can take on that. I don't know. You tell me.
If not, maybe I'll start one.
Yeah, you should. Hey, Candice, I have your next gig. The other thing I heard though, I'm making a joke now, is that I'm like, yeah, like of course you had a good experience. That guy was a pro. I mean, I mean, you're comparing him against some dude that was probably in high school or college that barely knew his head from his ass. Please, no one wants to compare like their first entrepreneurial experience against me. They're going to get whooped on. So,
oh man, yeah. I mean that's true, but also, I mean, being able to achieve climax as a woman in that industry is not even close to guaranteed. So
sure.
It's like they've done reports on women's sexual satisfaction and men's satisfaction, and then correlation to orgasm, and men have a much obviously easier time orgasming than women, but their satisfaction usually hovers around the same when it comes to casual sex. So women we experience sex a lot more differently. It's not necessarily a goal that we have to get to that orgasm, which I think is more of a male thing, right? Is like direct goal and how do I conquer this thing, where women are kind of taking things in more from like a diffused awareness.
Yeah, interesting. So, I was thinking about this, and this is such a unique subject for the show. I mean, usually it's entrepreneurs, and there's, we've actually had some chefs, and this is, again, you're the first person on the show that's done adult film. And so for me, like just being a guy and having some awareness of that world, there's a TV show on HBO, I don't know if you ever saw it, called I think it's called The Deuce. Have you ever seen that show?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's interesting. So it's about actually like the birth of the pornography industry in the 1970s. And when you watch it, you realize it was illegal in most places, right? So this is a industry that was illegal. There was a lot of, I guess, criticism of the industry, a lot of like police intervention, and there was a lot of shame, right? You think of the United States of America, that this is a Protestant nation. There's a ton of shame around sexuality. You talked a little bit about it earlier in the show, and you see where we're at now, where it's mainstream, right? It's different. And I think that came about probably over the last 25 to 30 years, right? Probably Jenna Jameson was probably the first person to like make it where there was like people singing about her and like MTV, right? And so when did you get, this was in what, the early 2000s or 2010 when you got involved?
Yeah, 2010, 2011. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you got in the industry when it was much more mainstream. Do you feel like there was like that stigma? I mean, obviously there's a stigma around being in the industry from some people's perspectives, but less so than 30, 40 years ago. How do you feel like it's viewed from a mainstream perspective from when you were involved? Or did you get any, like, I guess, context around the past of this industry that you chose to go into?
I don't know I don't think that there was a ton of context for the past. Obviously, it's way more accepted now than it was at the inception point. But I will say, back when, what was her name? Lovelace?
Yeah, Lisa Lovelace from
when she,
Deep Throat.
Right. There was actual cinemas for this and big premieres, and it was a big to-do, and it was very much glamorized. So there was this moment where it was like, not, I guess, prestige, like it was like a prestigious thing. Like these women were idolized. And even with Jenna Jameson, like she was kind of the first and the last to be allowed to evolve, grow, be a whole person, do mainstream stuff and do adult. And then very shortly after that, it was, you make this decision, that's all you're allowed to do. And for some reason, there's this group of people that hate me, hate what I've chosen to do. You're not supposed to be a slut. You're not supposed to be a whore. But if you make that decision, you're not allowed to change, evolve, grow, be anything other. So we're going to actually push you into remaining in that spot that we don't want you to be anyway, so that we can continue to throw rocks at you, which is really interesting because it's like, well, what's the solution then? So it's like no one is allowed to have remorse, grace. It would be embarrassing if you were the same person that you were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago. There should be some kind of personal development that has happened within that span of time. But for this group of untouchables, it's like, no, that's the only thing you're allowed to be because my brain is so lazy. I don't want to have to look at you as complex. I'm just going to look at you as bad. So you have to be bad and you have to stay in your bad box and you're not allowed to come out. And I'm sorry. You made your decision and now you have to deal with those consequences.
Yeah, well, I think that there's some a bit of evolution. We have negativity bias, right? So people need to be able to. This is like a human condition. I need to be able to say you're something, so I can identify it, so I can understand what it is. And I think that, to your point, there is a laziness there too, and a lack of curiosity. I mean, I'm in the camp of like massively curious, where I'm like, wow, that's a really like bold thing to do, knowing that there is these like social consequences, right? And being okay with it. And I'm like, what type of a person would be cool with that? Someone I'm like intrigued. I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to meet that person because that's a bold move, right? I think most people are ashamed. There's a lot of shame around the subject. And so some people are cool like me, and they're like, and then there's the rest of the world that are lame and they don't want to like challenge the way that they think. They want to be able to paint everyone with a brush. Like, you're this and I'm that, and I'm a mom and you're a dad, and I'm a politician and you're a, whatever you want to call yourself. I think, to your point, I think there's a laziness there that the world would be a lot better if people could get out of their box and challenge their curiosity as to why do I feel that way? Why do I feel like I get the right to judge someone and not question why I judge them that way? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, you nailed it. I think when we reduce someone's value and their worth to their sexuality, I think it's wrong when we do it on the spectrum of like purity culture. She's got to be a virgin, otherwise, she's worthless, or she's a whore and she's worthless. There's two ends of the spectrum that we're judging women purely on their sexuality, instead of saying, like, how does she contribute to her family as a mother, as a wife, to her friends, to her business, whether it's political, like is she philanthropic? There's all of these other things that cast such a wider ray of light and have such a that has such a more impactful that is more impactful than what she's doing with her sexuality. But for some reason, that's the thing that we want to hyper focus on. So it's like, how do you look at the whole person as a complex individual and how they're contributing, what they're giving, versus this one little thing that makes you uneasy? And I have this business development coach, and he talks about well, he's super Christian, so that's important because he brings everything kind of back to his religion when he talks. But he says that theologically, the word whore in the Bible didn't have anything to do with sex. That's just one example of what whore meant. So what whore meant was like an endless consumer. It was talking about consumption and overconsumption. So a whore was someone that was over consuming in anything and wasn't contributing back. So they were basically a taker. So we have turned that into, well, don't be a whore. Like, don't sleep around, when really it's don't be a taker, be a person of contribution. So can you have more sex than the average person and still be a contributor? I would say absolutely yes. Can you have more sex than the average person and be a taker? Absolutely. But you can be a whore in any industry. So I thought that was a really interesting like story that he told me, like based off theology, because we have like a lot of puritanical culture that's getting more popularized right now because we have that push and shove mentality. And you see that they use like their religion often to, cast what I'm doing down as bad and immoral and whatever. And according to him, they're actually using that word wrong.
Interesting. And it's a really good example, by the way, of like the power of language, right? And people manipulating language to fit their narrative. But I think you're making a good point, which is, how can we and people do this. There's so many examples of it, of I'm going to take this one thing, ignore the other 99 things, and that's what someone is. And because there tends to be a concentration of ideology around that one thing, it makes it where I get a hall pass to ignore the person as a whole, right? And if life was that easy, like life would be a hell of a lot easier. It's just not, right? Like, we're complex individuals, and people make choices, and you're not all one thing. So I think I think it's a great point. I love that example. I could seriously spend probably 2 hours on this subject with you, but because I'm telling you, I'm super fascinated by it. I want to pivot a little bit. So, you how did you meet your husband? I met your husband. I loved your husband. His name's Eric Horbacz. Like, we ended up I probably chatted with him for 30-40 minutes at the party we were at, and I was like, I really like her husband. He's a cool guy. Tell us a little bit about how you guys met. I mean, obviously, coming from the world you're coming from, most people are like, how does that even work? Like, if your wife is doing this, like that, like, you're obviously a very open-minded, cool guy, but like, tell us a little bit about that.
So I was bartending. He had a bar. I was in college. I applied. His partner hired me. So we didn't really even meet yet. I was working there for a couple of weeks. And I was just kind of getting into the industry as him and I started seeing each other. So like, I was working one day and he's like, you're done working. We're going to go out tonight. So I went out with a group of people, and then we have been together ever since. It was just like this constant, like, it was like a magnet. I was like, there's something really interesting about this person. I just know that this is going to be something. And my girlfriends were telling me, he's a rebound. That's not what this is. It's your first relationship since like your last. And my previous relationship was 7 years of just hell. And I was newly single. And so they were like, no, we've seen this before. We've done this before. This is not going to be anything. It can't be. It's the first guy you're with since. And I was like, no, I'm telling you guys, you're 100% wrong. And we've been together for 13 years now.
So you're getting in a relationship with a guy, and I'm just putting myself in his shoes, and my girlfriend's like, hey, I'm going to go do this adult stuff. Obviously you kind of dipped your toe in the water, did like, it was with women at first. How did he react to all that? He's like, oh, cool, right on, like, do your thing? Or like, was there any pushback? Or like, or was it like, tell us about that?
He was super excited because it was just with women. So he was just like, yeah, that's so hot. I'm really into that. So go do your thing. No one really had an issue with that. And also I was younger, right? I was like 20, 21. So I wasn't trying to start a business. I wasn't really operating in the real world yet. So you're surrounded by other college kids and just out of college. So it's really exciting and new, and people would tend to approach it with more curiosity at that age.
Mm.
So I didn't really understand how much friction that was going to cause later. And then I started getting approached with contracts to do boy girl almost immediately, and for some really big companies that I really wanted to work with. And I'd say, hey, they and I was 21, they're like offering me, $200,000 guaranteed to sign this contract. I was like, holy cow, like I want to do this and I really want to make these movies. And he's like, well, you can do that, but I'm not into that, so I'm not going to stop you, but no. And I was like, okay, never mind. I really like this guy, so I'm not going to do it. So then years went by, and they finally had this competition they were handing out a contract, and contracts just basically didn't exist anymore. So everything is kind of more freelance. And again, it was a big movie production company. And I was like, I want to do the big movies. I haven't done them still. And they don't really hire just girl performers. So if I'm going to take my career to the next level, I know I have to make this change. And we talked about it for probably a year before I decided to do the competition. And I was like, I know I'm going to win it. And I won it. And the first scene, it was hard. I think he had all of his friends, they all had opinions. They all said that we were crazy. The relationship was going to end. How could he? It was everyone else's judgment because they wouldn't personally do it. So then they didn't understand how anyone else could do what they couldn't do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was honestly the hardest part, was like other people's baggage, not his own experience, not my own experience, but everyone around us experiencing it.
And did like any of your friends, like when that happened, I mean, obviously you were doing the girl stuff, but like were the guys like, oh, I saw your girlfriend have sex, were they like giving him shit? Like,
oh yeah.
Oh, that's
and other family members too. Yeah. So
and were they like were they being rude about it? I mean, that I can't even imagine that conversation. That sounds like a really awkward conversation. And
that just shows people's character. So that wasn't a real friend of yours,
right?
He has plenty of friends that have never seen my stuff out of respect for him. And it's not like it was easy, and it's not like an ego. This isn't me boasting, but literally when I was in my height of my career, you could not go on a website without me being on the landing page. I was on every single landing page. So if you were watching adult film, 100% you have seen my face if it was during that time period. So it wasn't like I wasn't a popular performer and they could easily avoid my content. It was everywhere at the time. And he has really close friends that were like, I'm not going to do that. That's a boundary I'm not going to cross. And I love you and I respect you. I don't get what you guys are doing, but as long as you're happy, that's all that matters.
I'm like, as you're saying that, I'm imagining if I would lie to him and just see it and not tell him. And I'm like,
maybe.
I'm like, probably. I'd be like, hey man, I would never watch your girlfriend have sex and tell you. I will definitely not tell you that.
One of his best friends was like my number one fan. I don't know if he was like watching. I don't think he was watching my videos, but he would fangirl. So he would buy my DVDs and like have them signed, and he would just have them out. And he was like, "I'm so proud of you." And I was like, "This is weird. We can't do this."
You're like, dude. You're like, I don't know how to feel.
But no.
Yeah. You're like, it's too close to home.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so crazy. And so, yeah, it sounds super complicated. Where, like, how did it, eventually, obviously he was just like, so he got cool with it. It sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And
we have 2 kids, so I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, what has it just been a thing where it's like, yeah, this is what she does, and I'm proud of her, and it is what it is, and anyone that doesn't like it can go pound sand. Is that kind of how it is?
Yeah, he's my man. Like, he's got my back no matter what, and I think that is what you should want out of a union with someone. It's your ride or die, no matter what is you against the world. And it's not to say that he doesn't give me constructive feedback, or he's like, if am going to do something, like he doesn't challenge me to be a better person or look at it from a different lens. He does that all of the time, but it's that foundation of love. That's not without critique or criticism, of course, but it is, no matter what, I love you. No matter what, I'm going to be here for you through thick or thin and hell and high water. And yeah, I think he worked through the jealousy stuff really fast. I think we both did. We opened the relationship for a while I was shooting, because to me that was the only fair move. I couldn't be on screen and then also tell him he had a different set of rules. That didn't make sense for me. So we both went through a challenging time while we were experimenting with that and like, what is that? And again, it made us both look at love differently. And marriage. I mean, so much of the conversation where people think that it is crazy that we're together, like, well, why are you together if you guys had sex with other people? Well, to me, that just said that the union was way more than just having sex. It's like the relationship, that commitment, like I'm committed to staying with this person. I'm committed to building a life, starting a family, having your back no matter what. Like, I'm your person, and it has nothing to do with sex. So now that's almost an assault that's taken off of the table. Like, that's something that can't be weaponized and used against our relationship or our family. Because how many relationships does someone cheat and there's no conversation, there's no room, like there's no road back to redemption, because someone's ego and trust is so devastated they can't fix it, right? Because it's a lot, and we've kind of already gone through that with a fine-tooth comb, and I'm like, there is zero left here. There's like zero left here that is going to be a threat to the relationship. So to me, I don't know, it's like it's provided me a lot of solace in that way.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's almost like all this negative space, right? Like everyone else doesn't. Theirs is filled, right? And if you breach that space, there's instantly some heavy repercussion, because it's such a taboo subject, right? That this is not. I mean, and I have some friends who are in relationships where they are testing the boundaries on stuff like this, and you see it. I mean, some of them are navigating it fairly well, but it's a lot more communication and vulnerability than someone that just says, nope, I'm going to follow the traditional playbook, and you better not think about someone else. And it's like, good luck on that one. it's like that's like you're a human being, you know?
Right. Or if you look at someone too long, or like he's smiling at the waitress, like that's too big of a smile, that level of insecurity and fragility no one should want that, especially if you're married. You want to be able to go through hell together and be stronger on the other side. You don't want every single insecurity to be like a chink in your armor, which is going to devastate your relationship. And if you have kids, like, that's even worse. So I mean, I really challenge people that if this feels like it's hitting home, or, you know, I'm striking a nerve and I'm really agitating you, then that's great. That means I touched a wound, and pay attention to it. Like, dig a little bit deeper and see, why is that the way you feel? Why is the way that you think the right way? And is there a different way to approach this? Like, what do you want love and relationship and commitment to actually mean? It should be stronger than a glance and a smile. You know, it doesn't have to be as strong as sex, obviously, but just like really work around, like, how strong is your relationship?
Yeah. And obviously there's a spectrum, right? Like the glance and the smile versus, like, you know, significant other being in the adult film industry. But it proves a really good point that people's like, I think you made a really great point, which is like, if I'm striking a nerve, like, what's that mirror saying to you, right? Like, why do you feel that way? Why are you reacting that way? I think questioning that with curiosity and like with love for yourself is probably a pretty compelling question, right? You know, you touched on something a second ago that made me think of a question, which is your kids, right? Like that's a whole like can of worms. Your kids are pretty young, isn't that correct?
Yes, my oldest is 4.
So I think, like, first of all, congratulations. Having young kids is like, it's like I have a friend that said this to me, and I'll say it to you. She said, look, it's a shooting star, you know, don't blink, you'll miss it. Right. And my kids are 10 and 14. And it, like, the 14-year-old's already like earbud in, ignoring me, and I'm like, hey, cool guy, like, take it out, you know. But the 10-year-old's still like giving me like hugs and, like, you know, having him tuck him in and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, it's almost over. I'm gonna savor the moment. So savor it. You're in a good spot right now.
Thank you.
but yeah, like this is going to be probably complicated a little bit. Like you've addressed it with your husband, but these are your kids are going to like have friends. Their friends are going to probably say stuff to them. Kids have more access now to this material than ever. I mean, I grew up analog where you had to like steal magazines and movies if you wanted to see this stuff. I'm 45. Like the kids nowadays, like they pick up their phone and they have access. So like that's a real reality that you're going to be dealing with. How are you thinking about that?
So I think that the obvious thing is to try to be like, well, what are you teaching them about sex and the naked body and what consenting adults do, what like conversations around that. But I think if you establish a foundation, obviously I'm winging it because he's 4 and who knows where I'm going to be, when this conversation becomes more relevant. But I think it's establishing a foundation of trust, love, being yourself, regardless if that is going to be uncomfortable for other people. So not to live your life for others, not to overly indulge in like their feedback and their criticism. I'm not saying not to take any, because I think you always need to be kind of assessing, is there any truth to this, and be vulnerable with that instead of getting defensive. But not to like put on this facade that, I mean, I did that growing up in high school, middle school. Again, I was picked on so much. So it's, who can I be to be liked? Who can I be to be the popular girl, or to at least not get bullied? And like, I was getting physically bullied. So like, at least to not be that, like, who do I need to be? And I think a lot of kids go through that. It's like, who do I need to be? So establishing a sense of autonomy, agency, identity into who they are, so they are strong men. And it's whatever my mom did, I know that she loves me. I know that she was an amazing mom. She's an amazing wife to my dad. And this is my family. So if you're going to attack my family, then there's a problem, right? So it's establishing like that loyalty and that tribe. And also, how do you behave in the world? Like, do you tolerate people bullying others? So not to be like, I don't want them to be part of the herd. I want them to have a pack. So I want them to have friends, of course, but I don't want them to just go along to get along and not have an identity, and like a strong identity. So I think if we can establish that, I think that everything else won't be as hard as I am being told it's going to be. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. And I think it's also honoring their experience too. So like, if they're pissed at me and yelling at me and going through it, like allowing that, because that is their experience and they have to be able to process that. And I don't need to take that away, right? Like, it's not all pain is evil. So let them experience that and grow from that. But again, I think it's setting the foundation for them to be strong men. And what do strong men do? Well, they certainly don't let people shit on their family.
Yeah, I love that. And, like I mean, honestly, like just the entire nature of this conversation if anyone is listening to this, at least I hope they're getting what I'm getting, is that you're a very thoughtful person that's like really thought about like how to show up authentically for yourself and your family. And I think that that's a gift that you're going to give your kids, and you guys are going to work through if this even is an issue. Right. So I think kudos to that. Well, speaking of conversation, and I was like, gosh, I know I'm going to run out of time on the show, and here we are. So you're a podcaster, which is what got us on this to talking the first time I met you. And I know that you have an amazing podcast, Chatting with Candice. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you have some amazing people that you interview. It's a great show. You've gotten a ton of fanfare for it. Talk a little bit about, launching the show, like what the show's about, what you're doing over there.
So I was terrified. I think that was the scariest project I've ever launched, which is going to sound crazy, but to be so vulnerable, to share your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, like your true self with a whole bunch of people on the internet, like, that's scary. The other stuff is not. And take it from someone who's done both. Because if someone's attacking you on a very personal level, then that just cuts a lot deeper. And then also I felt like for a long time I was really battling my old identity. So it was you're not allowed to be anything other than this once you make that decision. Mm-hmm. And I dared to challenge that narrative. So I started a pretty intellectual podcast. I mean, I've had neuroscientists on, I've had like political talking heads. I've had people like Gad Sad, who's like brilliant, on the show, and they want to come on, which was shocking in the beginning. I have people like Eric Weinstein following me. And I'm like, what is happening? Where is this glitch in the matrix? And how did I land here? And I felt, again, like if I didn't expose who I really am, like I'm trying to like break that preconceived notion of like you're a dumb whore. Like that's all. If there's a woman who's pretty, if there's a woman who's sexual, she's not also allowed to be other things. And it's kind of like trailblazing in a sense. So I'm doing it for myself, doing it for my family, doing it for, the women that are going to be following their dream, whatever that is, outside of this decision to be in the adult industry in whatever fashion, whether it's OnlyFans, the mainstream industry, etc. So challenging the idea that we're just like this one thing. And I also, with having young boys, I felt like the narrative online, especially during 2020, was very anti-male, and you were getting condemned for just being born into the wrong sex. And that didn't seem, it didn't seem right. I mean, it's obviously not right, but for some reason that was being tolerated. And I'm like, I want my voice out there. I want someone who's challenging these really popular opinions. And I think because I was in porn, that people automatically assume I'm like crazy left wing, and I'm absolutely not, like not even close. So again, it's like adding a layer of complexity to people are really complicated. They're not this one thing. And yeah, I guess it's leading with curiosity, kind of what we've touched on with this conversation. It's like approach really hot button issues in people with curiosity instead of like a conclusion. And that's the whole purpose.
I love that. What's we only have a couple minutes, and I swear we could do a part 2 to talk all about your show. So if you want to do that, the offer's on the table.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. And I, if you want to guess, I'm a good guest, just so you know. So
of course. Yes.
All right. See, I got two wins here, guys. Who's the audience? Who's the ideal audience for the show? If you like to pick a avatar.
So right now it's about 75% male, which I think is kind of surprising, but it's still a pretty large female audience considering where I came from. I'm trying to just like have the biggest impact, and that's going to be on younger people. And I would love to get more women on listening to the show, because I think there's not a lot of women podcasters out there. There's probably, I think I'm in this women's group, and everyone's like, well, we pretty much listen to Joe Rogan and Mel Robbins, and that's it. And they're listening to other like really alpha man shows, and that's great, but that's half of the story. And you're also not a man, so you're listening to his routine and his protocol for success, and it's going to be so different than what you need as a woman. So I'm hoping to like slowly start adding a female base, because I mean, especially as women start getting into like young parenthood, and I'm sure you can attest to this, like with your wife, when you had small kids, your jobs were very different. There was no wake up at 5 a.m., journal, do breath work, hop in the cold plunge. Like, sure, as a man, that's totally possible. But like for a woman, are you sleeping? Did you eat? Did you shower? Have you brushed your teeth today? Are you okay? Do you need to go cry in a pillow? Like your hormones are going crazy, and your demands it's like so front loaded having a kid as a woman. It's like the first few years, probably like 5. It's heavy duty mama time. Like I'm not saying the dad's not doing anything. No, he's wildly important and very much needed, but it's just the demands are very different. So I think it's really important for there to be like women thought leaders out there to exemplify like a more realistic approach to this thing we called life. And I'm not saying I have it figured out, but I'm willing to share what has worked and what hasn't worked, and hopefully being able to provide that as a service to women. I
love that. All right, gang. So 2 takeaways here. Number 1 is Candice coming back on the show. And number 2 is I'm going to go on her show, and we're going to talk about life from Darius's perspective. You down for that, Candice?
Absolutely.
All right. We're doing that. I'm so pissed I'm out of time. I'm so pissed, right? Like, I feel like we're like mid conversation, but look, you guys, go check out Candice. Chatting with Candice is the podcast. Where else can they find you? I know you have a bunch of following online. How can people connect with you?
So if you're trying to find my Candice socials, you can go to chattingwithcandice.com, and then that will have all of that. And then if you're trying to find my other stuff, my Instagram is Eva Lovia, and then my Twitter is Fallen Lovia.
All right. So we'll make sure we put all that in the show notes. Candice, I'm so grateful to have you on the show, to have gotten to run into you at a party. And here we are having fun, talking about life, talking about all the craziness that you've been through and how you're navigating the complexities of life, being a mom, being a wife, and being an influencer and making waves of there. So much gratitude here at the Greatness Machine. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you again. I'll see you soon.
All right. Peace out, everybody. We love you. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.